Shabbat Shalom. The story is told that on the very first Seder night, thousands of years ago in Egypt, Moshe has 1 cup of wine, he has 2 cups of wine, he has 3 cups of wine, he has 4 cups of wine, and then he begins to realize he's outside the land of Israel. He's going to have to do it all again the next night. 2 nights in diaspora, Mr. Margolin. So Moses appeals to God and says, God, I barely got through these 4 cups of wine. I have to do it again tomorrow night. How in the world am I going to get through all of this wine? God says, Moses, take 2 tablets and call me in the morning. This is, of course, a holiday of questions. Why is it a holiday of questions? Because it's a mitzvah to tell the story of how God redeemed us from Egypt and brought us into freedom and the promised land. And because we have to tell that story, our rabbis build into the Seder the mitzvah of asking questions so that we can tell the story. Right? That's the connection between asking questions and Seder night. We're obligated to ask the questions in order to tell the story. If any of you have questions, deep, meaningful, profound, difficult questions about Passover, I invite you immediately following the service to ask Rabbi Dahlin. He would be happy to answer those questions for you. All the other ones, I'm happy to do my best to respond. So I thought maybe this morning, in anticipation of Seder night tonight, we could engage in some questions that maybe you want to repeat at your Seders tonight or tomorrow night, tonight or tomorrow night as well. So here's my first question. Where is the world's largest Seder? There we go. Those of you who looked ahead, you'll see on the very back sheet, thank you very much, the world's largest Seder meal takes place every year, not in Yerushalayim or New York, but in Kathmandu, Nepal. God bless Chabad, where around 2,000 people come together for the meal, most of them young Israeli backpackers. Right? And of course, the next favorite question that I like, how many eggs were used in the record holder for the world's largest matzah ball? It's made from 1,000 eggs, 80 pounds of margarine, and 200 pounds of matzah meal. Ironically, that's exactly what we're using for the second night Seder here at Shaarey Zedek as well, right? It's a mitzvah to ask questions, and it's a mitzvah to keep people interested in Seder night so they can keep asking questions, we can keep going and tell the story. I have a number of questions here provided that you can use. I've got some different Passover customs from around the world. If you turn back a sheet, you've got more questions on page 3. Now you're asking me, why are we going backward? We started with page 4, now we're going to page 3, just to keep you engaged and involved and saying, why is this night different from all other nights? So here on page 3, we have a few questions that you might want to use. You're welcome to use. Now I'll bring you to page 1. And I want to wrestle with some deeper, harder questions that I've been wrestling with here, especially over these last several weeks leading into Passover. You have gifted me some time over these next many years to engage in a little bit of sabbatical learning here and there. So I had a couple of weeks in March in order to go deep into my learning as I wrestle with the boundaries between justice and compassion and what does it mean. And really the origin, as I mentioned to you earlier, of my sabbatical learning is in the response to October 7th. Everything that we saw on the college campuses, how can it be that people would stand up seemingly pro-Hamas in response to October 7th? And that's sort of what was the genesis of my wrestling. And now I believe that as Jews, one of our biggest obligations, one of our greatest opportunities, is to engage in conversation in pursuit of truth. in pursuit of truth, because we seek that truth in service to God. And in order to pursue truth, in order to seek what God wants of us, we can't dismiss the hardest of questions. And I think too often in our own lives, and certainly in the world around us as we see it, political polarism, we are too quick to dismiss the hardest questions because we're afraid of where those answers might lead. And so, in the midst of my studies, I actually tried to take on some of the hardest questions. And so you'll see, here we are on page 1. And I'll ask you this question. Maybe you'll even bring it up at your Seder tonight or tomorrow night. Is American Jews' fierce and nearly unwavering dedication to the state of Israel a form of idolatry or a statement of profound peoplehood? Is American Jews' fierce and nearly unwavering dedication to the state of Israel a form of idolatry or a statement of profound peoplehood? Now I'll bring you 2 texts just to help elucidate the question. Peter Beinart, many of you know, is a journalist. Peter Beinart is a Jew. He's not pro-Hamas. And in order to really wrestle with our own Zionism and to make sure that it is a support for the state of Israel that we can be proud of, we take seriously questions and challenges, especially from our own people. Peter Beinart, in a recent book that came out called Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza, A Reckoning, he writes, more than 60 years ago, Hannah Arendt warned that that Jewish nationalism contained danger. She writes, the greatness of this people was once that it believed in God, 1963. Arendt continues, and now this people believes only in itself. Now Peter Beinart adds, when Prime Minister Netanyahu proudly declares that a Jewish state cannot be judged by any external standard, he is making that state and the Jewish people for whom it speaks an object of worship. That is to say, idolatry. Now, perhaps standing against that quotation is the quote from Leviticus 19, you shall not stand by while your neighbor bleeds. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against members of your people. Love your fellow Israelite as yourself. Any reactions to this question? Is American Jews' fierce and nearly unwavering dedication to the state of Israel a form of idolatry or a statement of profound peoplehood? It's a hard question. It's a big challenge. Certainly, I'll invite you at Kiddush, if you want to explore it a little more deeply with me, to bring it up and let's wrestle. Or maybe we wrestle tonight at your Seder. And one of the things I want to say, just in response to the question, because I take Beinart's criticism seriously, and I take many of his criticisms seriously throughout his book, even if ultimately I come to refute many of his criticisms. And that is the idea that if the state of Israel is the end in and of itself, then it really does become, in fact, idolatry. If our sole responsibility is to protect the state for the sake of protecting the state, then I think it is idolatry. But if the state of Israel is in service to the Jewish people, if the state of Israel is our expression of how we can lead righteous, compassionate, just lives, enacting God's will through the form of sovereignty, then I think it's not idolatry. Then it's in fact an expression of who we are and the mitzvot we're commanded to do. I encourage you to wrestle with this question and understand our relationship to the state of Israel. We are not meant to serve the state of Israel. The state of Israel is meant to serve the Jewish people. Next question. Is Jews' deep concern for their own physical safety a form of denying the covenant between God and the Jewish people? When I heard someone offer this criticism over the last couple weeks, I was really taken aback. how can our desire to be safe be a rejection of the covenant between God and the Jewish people? Or maybe more to the point of the person who offered this criticism, is the Jewish people so obsessed with its own safety that it's forgetting its obligation to serve God and to care for others? So I want to bring forward just a couple of texts here. If the thief is seized while tunneling and beaten to death, there is no blood guilt in that case. Herein is the mitzvah for self-defense. Not the permission for self-defense, the mitzvah, the commandment of self-defense. And standing against it, when you have begotten children and children's children and are long established in the land, should you act wickedly and make for yourselves a sculptured image in any likeness, causing the eternal your God displeasure and vexation, I call heaven and earth this day to witness against you that you shall soon perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You shall not long endure in it, but shall be utterly wiped out. The Eternal will scatter you among the peoples, and only a scant few of you shall be left among the nations to which the Eternal will drive you. There you will serve gods of wood and stone made by human hands that cannot see or hear or eat or smell. But if you search there, you will find the Eternal your God if only you seek with all your heart and soul when you are in distress, because all these things have befallen you, and in the end return to and obey the Eternal your God. For your eternal God is a compassionate God, who will not fail you nor let you perish. God will not forget the covenant made on oath with your ancestors. When we become obsessed with our security, when we use self-defense as a justification for every act, we can explain away everything. When we use self-defense as a justification, we can come to justify any and every act. There have been points over the last several weeks where Jews living in the West Bank have risen up and committed acts of terror against the Palestinians. We don't like to talk about it because it goes against our narrative. And we might be quick to stand up and say they have a right to defend themselves. And I'll be the first to say that Jews have a right to defend themselves. But we can't use self-defense as justification for each and every act. Not everything that Jews do is righteous simply because it's Jews who are doing the act. We have to be compassionate, we have to be just, and we have to protect ourselves. And I think on this Passover, it's our opportunity to be able to ask hard questions, even if we come to the answers that we already were at before. It's our obligation to ask hard questions. And so I'll bring you to the third question that I offer. How is the story of our people the same as it was before October 7th? How is it different? Might 1948 be a better marker of difference? Meaning, what is the story of the Jewish people before 1948? What is the story of the Jewish people after 1948? What is our story before 1967? What is our story after 1967? We can pick any year of time and say, how is that a marker of how the Jewish people has changed? How are we different? Tonight and tomorrow night, we will tell our story. Go and learn. Harami oved avi vayered mitzrayim v'yagor sham bimtei ma'at. A wandering Aramaean was my father, who went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. And there we multiplied, becoming a great people, strong and numerous. But the Egyptians dealt ill with us and afflicted us, setting us to hard labor. Finally, when we cried out to the Eternal, the God of our ancestors, the Eternal heard our voice, saw our affliction, saw our toil and our oppression. Then the Eternal brought us out from Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, with great awe, marvelous signs, and with wonders. That's the story we tell tonight. And a question I might ask of that story is, Why did God bother? Why does God care about us, among the smallest of nations in the world? Why does God care about these people who were oppressed by the Egyptians thousands of years ago? Why would God grant us the greatest miracle of all time after the worst tragedy to befall the Jewish people? So we saw the Holocaust immediately followed by the birth of the state of Israel. To me, the answer is the story of the Jewish people. What we are able to bring to this world in terms of justice and compassion. What we are able to bring to this world with wisdom and with kindness. What we're able to bring to this world with scientific advancements and with the desire to protect the rights of each and every person to live in peace. That's why God redeemed us. So tonight at our Passover Seders and tomorrow night, I invite you not just to tell the story of the Jewish people, but to tell the story of the Jewish people. It's not just that God saved us. It's that God saved us for a particular purpose. And it is our obligation in each and every generation to see ourselves having come out of Egypt and remember that God is bringing us out to live in righteousness, to live in safety, to pursue justice, and to be compassionate. May this night and may tomorrow night, may this season of questions bring you lots of answers. And perhaps most importantly, may it bring us even more questions. With that, I'll wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and an early Chag Kasher V'Sameach. Happy Passover.